Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. I am here with an introductory video on Continuous Formative Assessment CFA as per New Education Policy 2020. The objective of this video is to present frameworks and demonstrable models to conduct CFA. Now, let me share the screen with you all. This is very relevant in a post COVID 19 period where direct interaction with the learners are very minimal for teachers. The specific objective is to build capability in systems and expected permanent behavioral change for faculty members while implementing continuous formative assessment in one's own work setting. This is a generic introduction that is applicable for both higher education and K12 education, that is from 1st standard to 12th standard. Again, in this video, data of 1 month practice is also shown. This is the practice data of the online classes during COVID 19. Let me display the National Education Policy 2020 from a K12 or school education perspective. Section 4.34 talks about transforming assessment for student development. It talks about shifting the culture of school system from summative and tests on rote memorization skills to one that is more regular and formative in nature, that is competency based. This is the most important thrust area that tests higher order skills, analysis, critical thinking, and conceptual clarity. It also suggests about 360-degree multidimensional reporting that reflects uniqueness of each learner or student. Let's look into what National Education Policy 2020 talks about formative assessment from a higher education perspective. From a higher education perspective, National Education Policy 2020 advocates to focus on regular formative assessment for learning rather than summative assessment that encourages today's coaching culture. Let's discuss about the referrals and inputs towards continuous formative assessment. We have already discussed about National Education Policy 2020 in the previous slide. The next referral is the NCERT or the CBSE or the ICSE or the National Curriculum Framework Assessment Pattern that is applicable for K12 education. Similarly, one may refer the respective university or the autonomous college assessment patterns as applicable that need to be integrated to Bloom's taxonomy. Finally, there is an International Workgroup Agreement ISO IWA 2007 were the educators from 70 plus member countries with voting rights at International Organization for Standardization has joined together and formed a work group agreement related to educational process quality. Taking these four elements as reference, we can now move ahead towards process inputs of CFA. There are four process inputs for continuous formative assessment, such as anecdotal assessment, daily ongoing assessment, continuing assessment, and finally, internal summative assessment during the initial stages. These are the inputs towards continuing formative assessment. According to the NCERT or the CBSE or the ICSE or the National Curriculum Framework Assessment Pattern or guideline that is applicable for K12 education, the formative assessment of students has to be continuous and comprehensive. The term continuous emphasizes that the evaluation of identified aspects of student growth and development is a continuous process rather than a summative final event. Here, the total teaching learning process are spread over the entire span of academic session. It means regularity of assessment, diagnosis of learning gaps at intervals, and use of corrective measures and feedback of evidence to teachers and students are of utmost importance for their self evaluation. The term comprehensive means that the scheme attempts to cover both the scholastic and the co-scholastic aspects of students' growth and development. While considering the CBSE or the NCERT syllabus for the K12 sector, the continuous and comprehensive assessment proposes 6 assessments, of which 4 are formative assessments, each having 10%, that is a total of 40% weightage, and 2 are summative assessments, each with 30%, that is a total of 60% weightage. This is just a demonstration of example from K12 perspective, especially for the CBSE. Coming to the higher education scenario, the continuous formative assessment is conducted as per the university assessment pattern. Let's consider the assessment pattern of the Calicut University as an example. Here, the continuous internal evaluation of students is assessed through tests, seminars, attendance and class participation, and case analysis or assignments. CIE has 4 grade points or 40 marks, and each of these assessment techniques are integrated with Bloom's taxonomy. The next slide explains how this is integrated to design continuous formative assessment. Now, let's have a quick look at the Bloom's taxonomy, where the great educationist Benjamin Bloom has identified 6 domains of learning, starting with recall, moving upwards of the pyramid to understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and finally to create. A student is at the first level, that is recall, if he has comprehended and understood what has been taught. For example, concepts, formulae, definitions, names, equations, etc. While conducting ongoing daily assessment, a faculty may verify this on different perspectives. The first one is comprehension and understanding, whether the learner has comprehended and understood the concept. The second one is concept formation and conceptual clarity. If we look at the National Education Policy 2020, one of the major objectives is to enhance conceptual clarity among the learners. Both the above could be tested while at teaching and learning, thereby asking questions to the learners on a daily, ongoing basis. This slide is the demonstration of the previous slide. How the university requirements has been integrated to the design of assessment pattern. Further, other higher order cognitive dimensions are evaluated and understood directed as follows while integrating to university assessment pattern. Understanding and comprehension could be evaluated using seminars, giving case analysis and assignments. Application could be evaluated while conducting tests, both planned and unplanned. Analyze could be assessed while conducting tests, both planned and unplanned. Evaluate could be assessed while conducting tests, giving case analysis and assignments. Create could be evaluated while conducting tests, giving case analysis and assignments. According to the International Organization for Standardization, the International Workgroup Agreement ISO IWA 2007 is reviewed by the educational experts from K12, higher education, non-formal education sectors of more than 60 plus member countries with voting rights. This workgroup agreement forms a unified code agreed internationally to arrive at a common agreement on various aspects such as terms, concepts, processes, key performance indicators, outcomes, and other related process oriented elements in education sector. It should be noted at this juncture that international standards very clearly focus on assessment of learning as one of the key four processes that includes education design, curriculum development, and education delivery. Now, let's look at how the implementation of continuous formative assessment is taken up through a live case study. Continuous formative assessment can be planned at three levels. The first level is anecdotal assessment. The second one is ongoing daily assessment. And the third level is continuing internal assessment. As we discussed before, the same need to be integrated with Bloom's taxonomy of cognitive domains as shown in the slide. Anecdotal assessment records the data of students regarding their attitude, opinion, interest to learn, their overt behavior on various occasions, both planned and unplanned. For example, consider the situation where the students are asked to submit an assignment. While assessing the conformity to the submission time, the students are being evaluated on their interest and motivation to learn, integrity, excellence, and how fast they respond. Asking questions in the classroom is a different situation wherein the interest, communication skill, response time, and confidence of the learner may be assessed. While doing project works, the integrity and submission of the learner may be assessed. The abnormal behavior and the misbehavior of the learners may be evaluated during tours and industrial visits, while the salience during difficult situations may be assessed during pressure situations. While designing an anecdotal assessment, the assessor must take care of the following details. The first one is one must identify what is to be assessed, whether the overt behavior such as conformity, interest, motivation, communication skills, integrity, and so on. The next one is to take a decision on the situation by which the learner may be assessed, whether the situation has to be created artificially or not. After deciding what to be assessed and how to assess, the facilitator may record his observations without labeling the learner. When the responses from each learner is got, the facilitator may now analyze his observations, keeping an individual record for each learner. These records may be integrated with the continuous formative assessment as a complementary document, which in turn helps the facilitator to act as a channel for improvement. This slide shows the continuous formative assessment of 24 students with perfect formation. A mix of formative assessments that is anecdotal as on 3rd October 2020, then formative assessment that is continuing in nature as on date 10th October 2020 is displayed in this slide. Moreover, formative assessment on a daily ongoing basis at random are demonstrated in this slide. Please note that among the 60 students, this slide shows those 24 students whose formation is perfect. This slide shows those 7 students who need improvement and are categorized as potential students towards perfect formation. The abbreviations used are as follows. FANAC represents formative assessment using anecdotal assessment. FADA stands for formative assessment using daily assessment or ongoing assessment. FACA stands for formative assessment using continuing assessment. The number 1 stands for the code for conformance to submission and response. The number 2 represents the code for non-conformance to submission and response. DA stands for total for daily assessment. ANE stands for total for anecdotal assessment. CA stands for total for continuing assessment. Tick mark represents a student has answered a question. The multiplication symbol into represents a student has not answered the question. The hash symbol shows a student was planned to ask. The students shown in this slide are those who need improvement and categorized as above average students and need little push to come up. The students shown in this slide are categorized as non-conforming students, among which there are 4 groups of students that are average who need improvement. These students are filled on the top with light blue color. The critically non-conforming students who need urgent intervention are represented in red. The non-conforming students who require intervention have the color code dark blue. And the non-conforming students who need intervention can be identified as those filled with yellow color. You take any guideline or standard such as NCERT, CBSE, CICSE, NCF, or ISO IWA 2007. Any of these standards advocate the object of the course as to bring expected academic and or professional behavioral outcomes. The key object of this course is demonstrable behavioral outcome. Our advanced course is designed to build capacity to empower faculty members to demonstrate expected behavioral outcome as practitioners. What next? Among the 4 basic processes of teaching and learning, such as education design, curriculum development, education delivery, and assessment of learning, post-assessment activity such as correction and corrective action is a very important activity where students are brought up, empowered, weak students are supported, motivated, and inspired to grow on the respective levels of competencies. It is where the continuous formative assessment plays the role rather than focusing on summative assessment and coaching culture. That will be dealt in the advanced workshop. Welcome to our advanced session.